Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker have perhaps one of the most iconic friendships and brotherly bonds from across the entirety of Star Wars, sharing combat experiences across the duration of the Clone Wars, and bonding over the common experiences that shaped their formations into renowned Jedi Knights and warriors for the Republic. Though they would grow to become two of the most recognizable Knights of the Order, and their bond was nigh unbreakable before the rise of the Empire, is it possible that this bond actually played a very distinct role in the collapse of the Republic, and specifically, how it differed from most master and apprentice relationships, and contributed to Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side? Well, stick with us, weary travelers of the galaxy, as today we'll be discussing just how the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin was different from the traditional relationship that a Jedi Master and an apprentice shared with one another, and how this might have ultimately led to the downfall of the Jedi Order as a whole, despite how strong the bond seemed. The most important aspect of the standard relationship between a master and their apprentice to remember is that this was a mentorship wherein a Padawan would learn the necessary lessons to be inducted into knighthood from their master. There was a very distinct hierarchy between the two Jedi, with the master giving lessons and directives while showing the Padawan the ropes of what it meant to be a true Jedi Knight. And this came primarily from one of the most powerful teaching tools in existence, experience. This, however, was not the case for Obi-Wan and Anakin for a few reasons, primarily because of their proximity in age, as Anakin was incredibly old by the standards of a Jedi youngling, and began his training almost immediately after the death of Qui-Gon Jinn when the Jedi Council reverted their decision not to train him, at the age of 8, when the typical age to begin training for a Jedi is very, very young, not even a year old in fact, as the Jedi would claim the Force sensitives throughout the galaxy, believing that they were called for a higher purpose. Obi-Wan, however, was only just knighted after confronting Darth Maul and defeating him in combat, foregoing the Jedi trials and being promoted immediately to knighthood with no prior experience as a Jedi Knight before taking on a Padawan of his own, something that is not unheard of throughout Star Wars, but something that is uncommon. This informational gap between Obi-Wan's experience and Anakin's maturity meant that they both felt out the trials of being a master and an apprentice combination together, learning the same lessons as they went on growing with one another, instead of the master being a firm guiding hand as a seasoned warrior of the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan and Anakin were very much each other's teachers. Obi-Wan failed far more often than veteran masters, simply because he lacked the experience and worldly knowledge of what it meant to be a fully fledged Jedi Knight, seeing as he had only graduated to knighthood very shortly before being assigned a Padawan, and the bond that arose because of this was more in tune with a brotherhood rather than a teacher and a student relationship. This is on full display throughout the course of the Clone Wars, as Anakin rises rapidly through the ranks to become the youngest Jedi to ever hold a seat on the Jedi Council, and basks in the glow of his own potential, not to mention being knighted himself over the course of the Clone War. Throughout the course of Attack of the Clones and beyond, we can already see the holes in Obi-Wan's teachings, as we see some of the red flags that a seasoned master would have addressed far earlier in the training process. In Attack of the Clones, we see how Anakin regards himself, and how he believes he can grow to become one of the most powerful Jedi Knights in the Order. This is a fundamental belief that revolves around Anakin gaining more and more power, which is an incredibly dangerous dark side interpretation that should have been addressed by Obi-Wan long ago, as a Jedi should not seek power inherently, wherein Anakin seemed to seek power almost instinctively. In Attack of the Clones, we see how Anakin regards himself, and how he believes he can grow to become one of the most powerful Jedi Knights in the entire Order, and potentially even the Order's existence. Yet this ideal continues to flourish within Anakin's mind, and this thirst for power in tandem with the desire to save Padme are ultimately two of the largest driving factors that pushed him into the hands of Palpatine. We also see Anakin's propensity to disobey and incite conflict with his master, which Obi-Wan allows to happen, as he sees Anakin as more of a peer than his student. In most relationships, this kind of willingness to behave with brash arrogance would have been quashed nearly immediately, but seeing as Obi-Wan had never taken an apprentice before, he was not versed in disciplining his students as wiser masters would have been, which again is why many believe Anakin would have never turned to the dark side if Qui-Gon Jinn was not killed by Maul on Naboo. This brotherhood mentality allowed Anakin to see him, as well as his master master as equals, allowing him to get away with far more than would have commonly been allowed for many within the Order, and acting with the same brash recklessness throughout the Clone War. While Obi-Wan has reprimanded Anakin on numerous occasions, he has never had the authority of distinct superiority for these scoldings to hold any significant weight over Anakin. Obi-Wan is a powerful Jedi Knight, but he is not the chosen one, and Anakin elevated himself within the Order, but more importantly, within his own mind, believing that he was even the superior to his master. And it was only a matter of time before Anakin repeated the same behavior that Obi-Wan would ultimately come to accept from his Padawan. The lapse in his teaching ability meant that Obi-Wan made mistakes, and while he learned from them, his first apprentice being the chosen one meant that the consequences of his inexperience and failures held far more weight than any other master might have had in their shortcomings. If Obi-Wan had trained a previous Padawan, then he would have had the experience necessary to ensure that his relationship with Anakin allowed him to teach the chosen one in a proper fashion, which is why he was so much more successful in training Luke over the course of the original trilogy than he was when training Anakin. He saw the mistakes that he made the first time around when training a Padawan, and implemented these lessons into the next Padawan learner, again that being Luke. He trained Luke with far more confidence and self-assuredness, allowing Luke to grow into the Jedi Knight who would ultimately topple the regime of the Empire and create a new Jedi Order that was able to learn from the mistakes of the past. He taught Luke how to properly be in tune with his emotions as well as his senses, teaching him the ways of the Force while pulling on all of the prior experience that he had throughout the course of the prequel era. He never emphasized power with Luke or his potential to grow into one of the strongest Jedi Knights in the history of the Order, as he did with Anakin, feeding the young boy's arrogance. And instead, he taught Luke about the responsibilities associated with the Force, and how the Jedi Knights of old were meant to be servants of the Force and the galaxy as a whole. This relationship of a clear mentor training a mentee should have been the relationship that Obi-Wan and Anakin had throughout the Clone Wars in order to ensure that Anakin had proper guidance, though Obi-Wan simply lacked the experience and the knowledge to know any better. While Obi-Wan is not at fault for losing his apprentice to the dark side, there were factors at play, especially regarding his inexperience as a master, that led to the eventual fall of his friend and brother. I want to make it clear that skill-wise, Obi-Wan Kenobi did not lack in any fashion as a Jedi Master. It was simply his relationship to Anakin that needed work. This closeness and willingness to butt heads with one another is what led to the duo having routine conflicts that led to Anakin believing his master was just as naive as himself at times, and could be disobeyed without consequence. Luke, however, never thought that he knew better than Obi-Wan throughout the course of their training, and took his teachings as a student and not as a friend who had the capacity to argue back and deviate from his master's lessons. While this bond between Obi-Wan and the Elder Skywalker helped them in battle and allowed them to work together far more closely than some masters and apprentices, the shortcomings of this relationship resulted in the emotional instability of Anakin and a lack of proper, stern guidance. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this idea? Do you believe this relationship was one of the main reasons that Anakin fell to the dark side? And what do you think Obi-Wan could have done differently in order to prevent this? We would love to hear your thoughts and interpretations on this in the comments down below. Thank you as always so much for watching, may the Force be with you, and I hope to catch you in the next video.